The glass walls of Blackwell Industries gleamed under the afternoon sun, casting sharp geometric shadows across the polished marble floors. Emma Rodriguez sat at her desk on the 23rd floor, staring at the quarterly report spread before her. The numbers told a story she had written through countless sleepless nights and weekends sacrificed at the altar of corporate ambition. Her Revive campaign had pulled the Phoenix product line from the edge of extinction, generating $12 million in revenue over 3 months. It was the kind of success that should have earned champagne toasts and corner office promotions. Instead, she was waiting for Richard Blackwell to remember she existed. Emma glanced at the clock. 3:17. Her meeting with the CEO had been scheduled for 2:30, but Richard operated on his own timeline, a small cruelty he inflicted on everyone who worked beneath him. She had learned long ago that punctuality was for people without power, and Richard Blackwell had built an empire on making others wait. The door to his office swung open with theatrical force. Richard emerged, phone pressed to his ear, his other hand gesturing wildly as he spoke in rapid Italian to someone on the other end. He was tall and sharp, with salt and pepper hair that he wore slightly too long, as if to prove he could break his own corporate dress code. His suit was custom-tailored, probably worth more than Emma made in 2 months, and he moved through the office with the easy confidence of a man who had never been told no in his entire life. He walked past her desk without acknowledgement. Emma felt the familiar burn of frustration in her chest, the kind that had been building for the past 3 years. She stood, smoothing down her navy dress, and followed him back into his office. Richard dropped into his leather chair and tossed his phone onto the desk. He looked at her as if noticing her for the first time. Emma. Right. The Phoenix thing. He waved a hand dismissively. Have a seat. She remained standing. The Phoenix campaign generated $12 million in 3 months. That's triple our initial projections. Adequate, Richard said, leaning back in his chair. He picked up a silver pen and began tapping it against the desk. Though frankly, anyone with half a brain could have pulled those numbers. The market was ripe for disruption. You just happened to be the one holding the shovel. Emma's jaw tightened. I spent 6 months developing that strategy. I rebuilt the entire brand identity from the ground up. I personally negotiated partnerships with 15 influencers and secured prime placement in 70 retail locations. And you did your job, Richard interrupted, his tone flat. Congratulations. You want a medal? This is what we pay you for, Emma. Results are the baseline expectation, not some extraordinary achievement. She had heard variations of this speech before. Richard had a gift for taking credit when things went well and distributing blame when they did not. He ruled his company through fear and intermittent praise, keeping his employees in a constant state of uncertainty. Emma had watched talented people crumble under his management style, leaving the company as hollow shells of their former selves. But Emma was not like the others. She had clawed her way up from nothing, putting herself through night school while working 2 jobs, building her skills one painful lesson at a time. She had survived worse than Richard Blackwell. I want the promotion you promised, she said evenly. Vice President of Marketing. You said when the Phoenix line hit 10 million, would get the position. Richard set down his pen. He studied her with cool gray eyes that revealed nothing. Did I say that? Yes. In February. In this office. He steepled his fingers beneath his chin. I don't recall making any promises. But let me be clear about something, Emma. You are replaceable. Everyone in this building is replaceable. You think you're special because you had one successful campaign? I could walk downstairs right now and find 20 hungry graduates who would kill for your job and work twice as hard for half the pay. The words landed like a physical blow. Emma had given this company everything. She had missed her sister's wedding to close the Gallagher deal. She had worked through pneumonia to launch the winter collection. She had poured her blood and sweat into every project, believing that excellence would eventually be rewarded. And here was Richard, casually informing her that she was interchangeable. Something inside her snapped. The part that had been bending and accommodating and swallowing her pride finally reached its breaking point. She felt a strange sense of calm wash over her, the kind of clarity that comes when you have nothing left to lose. "Then replace me," Emma said quietly. Richard's expression shifted, surprise flickering across his features before he masked it. "Excuse me? You heard me. Replace me. If I'm so unremarkable and my work is so adequate that anyone could do it, then go ahead. Find one of those hungry graduates. I'll clear out my desk today." She turned toward the door. Her hand was on the handle when Richard spoke again, his voice dropping to something darker. "Stop." Emma paused but did not turn around. "You're not going anywhere," Richard continued. She heard the creak of his chair as he stood. His footsteps were soft on the carpet as he crossed the room. "You think you can just walk away? After everything I've invested in you? The training, the resources, the opportunities I've given you? Opportunities you've given me?" Emma turned slowly to face him. He was standing too close now, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and woody. "I earned every single thing I have in this company. You've spent 3 years taking credit for my ideas and blocking my advancement. I made you," Richard said, his voice low and intense. "When you came here, you were nobody. A girl with a degree from a state school and more ambition than sense. I saw potential in you when no one else did. I gave you a chance. And I repaid you 1,000 times over," Emma shot back. "But you're right about one thing. I was nobody when I started here. Now I'm somebody. And I don't need you anymore." Richard's eyes flashed with something unreadable. He reached past her and Emma heard the distinctive click of the door lock engaging. "You're not leaving this office," he said softly, and there was something in his voice that sent ice through her veins. "Not until we come to an understanding." Emma's heart began to pound. She stepped back, putting distance between them. "Unlock the door, Richard. We need to talk. Unlock the door right now, or I'm calling security." Richard laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Security works for me, Emma. Everyone in this building works for me. You seem to have forgotten that fundamental fact." He moved back to his desk, perching on the edge of it, blocking her path to the phone. "Sit down. Please." The please was almost worse than the command. Emma remained standing, her mind racing through options. The glass walls of his office were tinted, privacy glass that prevented anyone outside from seeing in. Her phone was back at her desk. No one knew she was here. "What do you want?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. "I want you to understand your situation," Richard said. "You think you can just walk out and find another job? I have contacts at every major firm in this city. One phone call from me, and you're unhireable. I can make sure you never work in marketing again. That's illegal. Prove it." He smiled, and it was not a kind expression. "You're good, Emma. Better than good. You're exceptional. And that's precisely why I can't let you go. Do you have any idea what would happen to this company if you left? If you took your skills to a competitor?" Understanding began to dawn. This was not about her being replaceable. This was about her being irreplaceable, and Richard finally realizing it. "You need me," Emma said slowly. "I need your talent," Richard corrected. "There's a difference." "Then why have you spent 3 years treating me like I'm worthless?" For the first time, Richard looked uncomfortable. He glanced away, jaw working. "That's complicated." "Uncomplicate it." The silence stretched between them, heavy with years of unspoken tension. Outside the tinted windows, the city continued its indifferent rhythm, unaware of the confrontation unfolding 23 floors above. Richard finally spoke, his voice quieter than she had ever heard it. Because if I told you how valuable you really are, you'd leave. You'd know your worth, and you'd go somewhere that actually deserves you. I kept you uncertain because uncertain people stay. They keep trying to prove themselves. They don't realize they already have. Emma stared at him, anger and something else, something she did not want to name, warring inside her. That's manipulative. Yes, Richard agreed simply. It is. Unlock the door. Not yet. We're not finished. I think we are. Emma pulled her phone from her pocket. Unlock the door, or I'm calling my lawyer. Richard moved fast. Before she could dial, he was across the room, plucking the phone from her hand with practiced ease. You're not thinking clearly. You're emotional right now. Give me my phone. Emma. He said her name like a prayer or a curse. I'm trying to protect you. From what? From making a mistake you'll regret. He set her phone on the far corner of his desk, well out of reach. If you walk out of here today, your career is over. I'll make sure of it. But if you stay, if you just listen to what I have to say, I can offer you something better than a vice president title. Emma's mind was spinning. This had gone so far beyond a normal employer conversation that she could not find solid ground anymore. Richard was acting like a man on the edge, desperate and dangerous, and she was trapped in an office with him. What could you possibly offer me that would make me stay after this? She asked. Richard looked at her for a long moment. Then he reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a folder. He opened it and extracted a single document, placing it on the desk between them. 50% ownership of Blackwell Industries, he said. Equal partnership. Your name on the building. Full executive authority. Everything I have, split down the middle. Emma's breath caught. She looked at the document. It was a contract, already drawn up, her name typed in the partner designation line. Why? She whispered. Richard's expression was raw, all his usual armor stripped away. Because this company is failing. Because I've made terrible decisions over the past year and I'm drowning. Because you're the only person in this entire building with the vision to save it. He paused. And because I'm tired of pretending I don't need you. The confession hung in the air between them. Emma realized she was trembling. This was not what she had expected. This was not a simple power play or manipulation tactic. This was surrender. You locked me in your office to offer me a partnership, she said incredulously. I locked you in my office because I knew if you walked out that door angry, you'd never come back. And I can't afford to lose you. Richard ran a hand through his hair, suddenly looking older, more vulnerable. I know I don't deserve your trust. I know I've been terrible to you. But I'm asking you to give me a chance to make this right. Emma stared at the contract on Richard's desk, her mind struggling to process the sudden shift in reality. The document looked official, stamped with the company seal, signed at the bottom with Richard's distinctive scrawl. 50% ownership. It was more than she had ever dared to dream, offered by the man who had spent years diminishing her contributions. This is insane, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. You can't just decide to give away half your company because you're afraid I'll quit. I'm not giving it away, Richard replied, moving back to lean against his desk. I'm investing it in the only person who can save what I've built. There's a difference. Emma shook her head, trying to clear the fog of confusion. What do you mean, save it? Blackwell Industries is worth $300 million. The stock price is stable. We just posted record profits last quarter. Creative accounting, Richard said bitterly. We posted record profits because I sold off our manufacturing division and laid off 200 employees. I've been liquidating assets to cover operational losses for the past 18 months. The Phoenix campaign was supposed to be my Hail Mary pass, the thing that turned us around before the board realized how bad things really are. How bad are they? Richard walked to the windows, staring out at the city skyline. We have 6 months of operating capital left. Maybe 7 if I can delay vendor payments. The Henderson contract fell through last month, cost us $20 million in projected revenue. The Gallagher deal you closed is the only thing keeping us afloat, and even that won't be enough if we don't land 3 more accounts of similar size by the end of the year. Emma felt like the floor had dropped out from beneath her. 6 months? That's impossible. I see the reports. You see the reports I want you to see, Richard said quietly. I've been filtering information, keeping the full picture from everyone except my accountant and lawyer. If the board finds out, they'll force a sale. If our clients find out, they'll jump ship. If our employees find out, we'll have a mass exodus. You've been lying to everyone. I've been protecting everyone, Richard corrected sharply, turning to face her. Do you think those 200 people I laid off would have thanked me for telling them the truth 6 months earlier? Do you think transparency would have saved their jobs? I made hard choices to keep this company alive, and I'd make them again. Emma crossed her arms, anger flaring hot in her chest. So your solution is to what? Trap me in your office and force me into a partnership I never asked for? Make me complicit in whatever house of cards you've built? My solution is to give you the power to fix it, Richard said intensely. He pushed off from the desk and moved toward her, his gray eyes locked on hers. You're brilliant, Emma. You see angles I miss. You connect with people in ways I never could. The Phoenix campaign worked because you understood something I've forgotten how to build: loyalty. You made people believe in the product, believe in the brand. I can't do that anymore. I've burned too many bridges, made too many enemies. Then maybe you should step down and let someone else run the company. I can't. Richard's voice cracked slightly. This company is all I have. My father built it from nothing, worked himself into an early grave trying to make it succeed. When he died, I was 25 years old with a business degree and no idea what I was doing. I've spent 20 years trying to prove I was worthy of his legacy, and I'm watching it crumble because I'm not enough. For the first time since she had met him, Emma saw past Richard's armor to the frightened man underneath. He was not the untouchable CEO, the ruthless businessman who treated people like chess pieces. He was someone's son, carrying the weight of expectations he could never quite meet, terrified of failing the memory of a man who would never know if he succeeded. Emma felt her anger shift into something more complicated. Unlock the door, Richard. He hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He tapped the screen, and she heard the lock disengage with a soft click. You're free to go, he said quietly, not meeting her eyes. I won't stop you. And I won't make those calls to blacklist you. You're right. You don't owe me anything. You've earned the right to walk away. Emma looked at the door, then back at Richard, then at the contract still lying on his desk. She thought about her tiny apartment in Queens, the student loans she was still paying off, the years she had spent building a career that had always felt one crisis away from collapse. She thought about her mother, working double shifts at the diner until arthritis forced her into early retirement. She thought about her younger brother, brilliant and full of potential, who could not afford college without scholarships. She thought about power. Real power. Not the kind Richard wielded through fear and manipulation, but the kind that came from ownership, from having a seat at the table where decisions were made. How long have you had that contract prepared? She asked. Richard looked up, surprise flickering across his face. 3 months. Since you closed the Gallagher deal. I had my lawyer draw it up the next day. Why didn't you offer it to me then? Because I'm a coward, Richard admitted. Because offering it meant admitting I need you, and I've spent my entire adult life pretending I don't need anyone. Emma walked slowly to the desk. She picked up the contract and read through it carefully, her legal internship from years ago kicking in as she scanned the clauses. It was legitimate, shockingly generous even. Equal profit sharing, equal decision-making authority, guaranteed board seat, protection against removal except for cause. This gives me veto power over your decisions, she noted. Yes. You'd be giving up absolute control. Yes. Why would you do that? Richard met her eyes. Because absolute control is killing this company. Because I've made terrible decisions when no one could stop me. Because maybe if I had someone I trusted telling me when I'm about to do something stupid, I wouldn't have driven us into this hole in the first place. Emma set the contract down. I have conditions. Hope sparked in Richard's expression, quickly suppressed. Name them. First, no more locked doors. No more intimidation tactics. If we're partners, we treat each other with respect, or this doesn't work. Agreed. Second, full financial transparency. I want to see every account, every contract, every liability. If I'm going to help fix this, I need to know exactly how deep the hole is. Agreed. Third, the 200 employees you laid off. We find a way to bring them back when we stabilize. We don't build success on the backs of people who trusted us. Richard hesitated on that one. That might not be financially feasible. Then we make it feasible, Emma said firmly. That's my condition. Take it or leave it. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay. But Emma, I need you to understand something. This isn't just a business partnership. If we do this, we're tied together. Your reputation becomes linked with mine. If this company goes down, we both go down with it. I understand. And there's something else. Richard's voice dropped lower. Something I need to tell you before you sign anything. Emma waited, tension coiling in her stomach. The reason I've been so hard on you, so dismissive and cruel, it wasn't just about keeping you uncertain. He paused, struggling with the words. 3 years ago, when you first started working here, I made a mistake. I developed feelings for you. Inappropriate feelings for an employee. And I knew if I acted on them, it would destroy everything: professional credibility, your career, both of our reputations. So I pushed you away. I made you hate me because it was easier than admitting I couldn't stop thinking about you. The confession hung in the air like smoke. Emma felt her heart hammering against her ribs. She thought about all the late nights in the office, the times she had caught Richard watching her when he thought she was not looking, the strange intensity in his criticism that always felt personal rather than professional. That's completely inappropriate, she said finally. I know. You can't tell an employee that you have feelings for them and then expect them to work with you. I know. Richard looked miserable. But I couldn't let you sign that contract without knowing. If we're going to be partners, you deserve the truth. All of it. Even the parts that make me look terrible. Emma turned away, walking to the windows. The city sprawled below, millions of lives intersecting in patterns too complex to predict. She thought about what she wanted. Not just in her career, but in her life. She had spent so long focused on survival that she had forgotten to consider what came after. I don't trust you, she said without turning around. I don't blame you. And I don't know if I can ever trust you after this. I understand. But I'm going to sign that contract anyway. She turned to face him. Not because of your feelings or your manipulation or your desperate confession. I'm signing it because I've spent 3 years learning how to run this company while you took credit for my work. I know every department, every client, every weak point in our operation. And I'm tired of watching someone else make decisions I know are wrong. Richard's expression was unreadable. So this is about power. This is about knowing my worth, Emma corrected. You spent 3 years trying to convince me I was replaceable. You failed. I'm not replaceable. I'm essential. And it's time I started acting like it. She walked back to the desk and picked up the pen. Her hand hovered over the signature line. If I do this, things change. I'm not your employee anymore. I'm your equal. That means I get to tell you when you're being an idiot, and you have to listen. I can live with that. And whatever feelings you think you have, you keep them professional. We're partners. Nothing more. Understood. Richard's voice was carefully neutral, but she saw something flicker in his eyes. Disappointment, maybe. Or relief. Emma signed her name in swift, decisive strokes. The ink dried quickly, making the decision permanent. She set down the pen and looked at Richard. So what now, partner? Richard reached across the desk and offered his hand. Now we save this company. Together. Emma shook his hand, feeling the warmth of his palm against hers, the firm grip that spoke of desperation and hope in equal measure. She knew she was taking an enormous risk. Richard could be lying about everything. This could all be an elaborate scheme to bind her to a sinking ship. But her instincts, the same instincts that had pulled Phoenix from the ashes, told her there was something real here. Something worth fighting for. I'll need an office, she said, releasing his hand. A real one. With windows. You can have the one next to mine. It's been empty since Henderson left. And a title. Partner is fine for the contract, but we need to tell the board something that makes sense. Co-CEO, Richard suggested. Equal authority, equal responsibility. Emma nodded. We announce it tomorrow. And Richard? Yes? If you ever lock me in your office again, partnership or not, I will destroy you. For the first time that afternoon, Richard smiled. It was a genuine smile, without calculation or cruelty. Duly noted. The boardroom of Blackwell Industries had witnessed countless battles over the years, but nothing quite like the war that erupted when Richard and Emma announced their new partnership. The 12 board members sat around the mahogany table, their expressions ranging from shock to outrage to barely concealed calculation. This is unacceptable, declared Patricia Holbrook, the silver-haired dragon who controlled the largest block of independent shares. You can't simply give away half the company to an employee without board approval. I can, and I did, Richard replied calmly. He sat at the head of the table with Emma beside him, presenting a united front. The company charter gives me the right to bring in a partner of my choosing. I'm exercising that right. She's not qualified, another board member, James Chen, interjected. No offense, Miss Rodriguez, but you've been here 3 years. You're marketing director. You've never run a company. Neither had Richard when his father died, Emma said smoothly. Yet here we are, 20 years later. Experience is valuable, but vision matters more. And I have vision for where this company needs to go. Vision doesn't pay the bills, Patricia snapped. We need results, not pretty speeches. Then let's talk about results, Emma said. She stood, walking to the presentation screen mounted on the wall. She pulled up a series of slides she had spent all night preparing. The Phoenix campaign generated $12 million in revenue with a marketing budget of $800,000. That's a 1,500% return on investment. The Gallagher contract brought in $20 million. I've personally been responsible for 40% of company revenue over the past year. The board members exchanged glances. Emma could see the calculations happening behind their eyes. Furthermore, she continued, I've identified 12 areas of operational inefficiency that are costing us approximately $4 million annually. I have strategies to cut those losses while actually improving employee satisfaction. And I've already had preliminary conversations with 3 potential clients that could bring in a combined $60 million in new business. Preliminary conversations mean nothing, James said dismissively. Promises don't sign contracts. Which is why I spent this morning finalizing one of them. Emma pulled up another slide showing a signed letter of intent. Valencia Tech has agreed to a 3-year marketing partnership worth $18 million. The contract will be finalized by end of week. The room went silent. Richard had not known about Valencia Tech. Emma had not told him, had spent the morning making calls and leveraging every connection she had built over her career. She met his eyes across the table and saw surprise there, and something else. Pride, maybe. Or fear at realizing exactly how capable she actually was. That's impressive, Patricia admitted grudgingly. But it doesn't change the fundamental problem. This company is overstaffed, underleveraged, and headed for a correction. We need to make hard choices, not expand the executive suite. We need to make smart choices, Emma corrected. And smart means investing in people, not cutting them loose the moment things get difficult. Richard, may I? He nodded, gesturing for her to continue. I've reviewed the financials, Emma said. All of them. Including the ones Richard has been keeping from most of you. She saw several board members sit up straighter. We're in trouble. Not terminal trouble, but serious trouble. We have 6 months of runway left before we start defaulting on obligations. However, I've also identified the exact moment when things started going wrong. She pulled up a graph showing revenue over the past 5 years. 2 years ago, Richard made the decision to cut research and development spending by 60%. He redirected those funds into executive compensation and shareholder dividends. It made the quarterly numbers look good, but it gutted our ability to innovate. While we were patting ourselves on the back for meeting short-term targets, our competitors were developing the next generation of products. We're now 18 months behind the market curve, and we're paying the price. Richard's face had gone pale. That decision was approved by this board. It was approved because you told us it was the right move, Patricia fired back. You said research and development was bloated and inefficient. It was both those things, Richard admitted. But I should have restructured it, not eliminated it. So what's your solution? James asked Emma. We can't just reverse 2 years of decisions overnight. We can't, Emma agreed. But we can do something better. We can pivot. The market has moved on from where we were strong. So we move with it. I've been developing a proposal for a new division focused on sustainable products. The research shows consumers, especially younger demographics, are willing to pay premium prices for brands that demonstrate environmental responsibility. We have the infrastructure, we have the talent, and with the Valencia Tech partnership, we have the capital to launch. She pulled up detailed projections, market analysis, competitive positioning. She had not slept in 36 hours, fueled by coffee and the electric thrill of finally having the authority to implement ideas she had been pitching for years. The board members leaned forward, studying the numbers. Emma watched their expressions shift from skepticism to interest to something that looked like hunger. This could work, Patricia said slowly. But it's risky. If we invest heavy in a new direction and it fails, we're finished. If we don't invest, we're finished anyway, Emma replied. This is our best chance. Our only chance, really. I want independent verification of these projections, James said. And I want to see a detailed implementation timeline before we commit to anything. Fair enough, Emma agreed. I can have full documentation ready for review within 1 week. The meeting continued for another 2 hours, with Emma fielding questions and defending her proposals against every challenge the board could throw at her. By the time they finally adjourned, she was exhausted but exhilarated. She had held her own against some of the sharpest business minds in the city, and she had won their respect, if not yet their complete trust. Richard caught up with her in the hallway outside the boardroom. Valencia Tech. When did that happen? This morning, Emma said, not slowing her pace as she headed back to her new office. I called in a favor from someone I used to work with. They've been looking for a marketing partner, and I convinced them we're the right fit. You've been co-CEO for less than 24 hours and you've already closed an $18 million deal. Is that a problem? Richard fell into step beside her. No. It's terrifying and impressive in equal measure. I'm starting to realize I've been holding you back without even knowing it. They reached Emma's new office. It was spacious, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of the harbor. Her belongings from her old desk were already here, arranged neatly by someone from facilities. The nameplate on the door read, Emma Rodriguez, Co-Chief Executive Officer. I need you to be honest with me about something, Emma said, turning to face Richard. Yesterday in your office, you said you developed feelings for me. Was that true, or was it just another manipulation tactic? Richard leaned against the doorframe, his expression unguarded. It was true. It is true. But Emma, I'm not going to act on it. I meant what I said about keeping things professional. Good. Because I need to know I can trust you, and I can't do that if there's ulterior motives lurking beneath every decision. There aren't. I promise. He paused. Though I should mention that Patricia Holbrook cornered me after the meeting. She wants to have lunch with you next week. Alone. Emma raised an eyebrow. Why? Because she's impressed, and when Patricia is impressed, she starts thinking about alliances. She controls 30% of the board votes. If you can get her on your side, you'll be untouchable. I thought we were on the same side. We are, Richard said. But Patricia is a political animal. She'll want to assess you separately, figure out if you're someone she can work with long term. It's not personal. It's just business. Emma nodded, filing the information away. Anything else I should know? Yes. Richard's voice turned serious. James Chen is going to come after you. He's been angling for more board control for years, and he sees your promotion as Richard consolidating power by bringing in a loyalist. He'll try to undermine you, find weaknesses, exploit any mistake you make. Let him try, Emma said confidently. I didn't come this far to be pushed around by corporate politics. Richard smiled, that genuine smile she had seen only once before. You're going to be amazing at this. Better than me, probably. Definitely better than you, Emma corrected, but there was warmth in her voice. They stood there for a moment, the late afternoon sun streaming through the windows, casting long shadows across the empty office. Emma felt the weight of what she had taken on settling onto her shoulders. She was responsible now. Not just for her own success, but for the livelihoods of hundreds of employees, for the legacy Richard's father had built, for the promise of something better that she had sworn to create. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. What if I fail? Then we fail together, Richard said simply. That's what partnership means. 6 months later, Emma stood on the stage at the annual shareholders' meeting, looking out at a room full of investors and analysts. The transformation had not been easy. There had been late nights and difficult decisions, moments when she had doubted everything. But the numbers did not lie. I'm pleased to report, Emma said into the microphone, that Blackwell Industries has not only stabilized, but thrived. Our new sustainable products division launched 2 months ago and has already exceeded first-year projections. Revenue is up 38% year over year. We've rehired 90% of the employees who were laid off, and we're actively recruiting for new positions. The future has never looked brighter. The room erupted in applause. Emma caught Richard's eye from where he sat in the front row. He was clapping too, and there was something in his expression that made her heart skip. Not desire exactly, though maybe a little of that. More like recognition. He saw her as she truly was, stripped of all pretense, and he was proud. After the meeting, after the handshakes and the congratulations and the endless questions from analysts, Emma finally made it back to her office. She kicked off her heels and collapsed into her chair, feeling the exhaustion of the past 6 months catching up with her all at once. There was a knock on her door. Richard entered without waiting for an invitation, carrying 2 glasses and a bottle of champagne. We did it, he said simply, setting the glasses on her desk and popping the cork. The champagne fizzed as he poured. You did it. We did it, Emma corrected, accepting the glass he offered. I couldn't have done this without your support. I think we both know that's not true, Richard said. But I appreciate the kindness. They clinked glasses and drank. The champagne was perfect, crisp and cold and expensive. So what now? Emma asked. We've saved the company. What's the next mountain to climb? Richard set down his glass. There is something I've been thinking about. Something I want to run by you. What is it? I want to step back. Not completely, but partially. I want you to take over as primary CEO while I transition to chairman of the board. You've proven you can do this job better than I ever could, and I think it's time I admitted that officially. Emma stared at him. Are you serious? Completely. I'm tired, Emma. I've been running this company for 20 years, and honestly, I'm ready to let someone else carry the weight. Someone I trust completely. He paused. Someone I might actually want to spend time with outside this office. Emma's heart started beating faster. Richard, what are you saying? I'm saying that 6 months ago, I told you I had feelings for you and I promised to keep them professional. I've kept that promise. I haven't crossed any lines or made you uncomfortable or used my position inappropriately. But Emma, those feelings haven't gone away. If anything, they've gotten stronger. Watching you command that boardroom today, seeing you fight for this company and these employees, I've never been more certain of anything in my life. We're partners, Emma said weakly. We can't. We were partners when there was a power imbalance, Richard interrupted gently. When I was your boss and anything between us would have been inappropriate and potentially coercive. But if I step back, if you become the CEO and I'm just a board member, then we're not in the same chain of command anymore. We're just two adults who work together. And maybe, if you feel even a fraction of what I feel, we could be something more. Emma's mind was racing. She thought about the past 6 months, the long nights working side by side with Richard, the way he had supported every crazy idea she had proposed, the way he looked at her when he thought she was not paying attention. She thought about trust, about whether she could truly trust a man who had spent years manipulating her. But then she thought about growth, about how people can change when given the chance, about how Richard had stepped back and let her shine when it would have been easier to maintain control. I'm not ready, she said finally. I need time to think about this without the pressure of a grand gesture or a declaration. Can you give me that? Richard's expression softened. I can give you all the time you need. I've waited 6 months. I can wait longer. Thank you. Emma stood, setting down her champagne glass. She walked around the desk and stood in front of Richard. On impulse, she reached out and took his hand. Thank you for seeing me. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. For being brave enough to let me become your equal instead of keeping me as your subordinate. That means more than you know. Richard squeezed her hand gently. You were always my equal, Emma. I just had to get out of my own way long enough to admit it. 1 year later, Emma sat in the new CEO office that had once belonged to Richard, reviewing the quarterly reports with satisfaction. Blackwell Industries was thriving. The sustainable products division had expanded into 3 markets and was being hailed as an industry leader. Employee retention was at an all-time high. The stock price had doubled. And sitting across from her, arguing passionately about whether to acquire a smaller competitor, was Richard. He had officially stepped down 6 months ago and had taken to his role as chairman with surprising grace. He showed up for board meetings and strategy sessions, but he no longer carried the weight of day-to-day operations. He looked younger somehow, the perpetual stress lines around his eyes fading. They had started dating 3 months ago, taking it slow, building something real on a foundation of mutual respect rather than power dynamics. It was not perfect. They still argued, still challenged each other, still occasionally made each other furious. But it was real. And it was theirs. "You're not listening to me," Richard said, snapping her back to the present. "I am listening," Emma replied. "I'm just not agreeing with you. There's a difference. The merger makes sense financially. The merger makes us too big. We lose the agility that's made us successful. I'm voting no." Richard sat back, studying her. Then he smiled. "You're probably right." "I know I'm right," Emma said, but she was smiling too. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Patricia Holbrook. "Lunch next week? Heard through the grapevine you're considering expansion into Europe. I have thoughts." Emma showed Richard the message. "Patricia wants lunch." "She always wants lunch," Richard said. "She's cultivating you as her chosen successor when she retires from the board." "Is that what you think?" "That's what I know. Patricia sees herself in you. The next generation of cutthroat businesswoman, but with actual empathy. It terrifies and delights her in equal measure." Emma laughed, setting down her phone. She looked at Richard, at the man who had once locked her in his office and told her she was replaceable, at the man who had learned to let go of control and trust someone else to lead. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For telling me I was replaceable. For pushing me to prove you wrong. For giving me the chance to become who I was always meant to be." Richard reached across the desk and took her hand. "You would have become this person regardless. I just got lucky enough to be here when you did." Outside the windows, the city gleamed in the afternoon sun, full of possibility and promise. Emma thought about the girl she had been 3 years ago, desperate and hungry and so afraid of failing that she had accepted less than she deserved. She was not that girl anymore. She was the CEO of a thriving company, the partner to a man who saw her as an equal, the architect of her own destiny. She was replaceable, Richard had told her. And in proving him wrong, she had discovered something more valuable than any title or salary. She had discovered exactly who she was when no one was limiting her potential. "Come on," Emma said, standing and gathering her things. "We have that meeting with the European investors in an hour, and I want to prep one more time." "You've been prepping for a week," Richard protested, but he stood anyway, following her toward the conference room. "And I'll prep until the moment we walk in," Emma replied. "Excellence isn't accidental, Richard. It's intentional." As they walked down the hallway together, side by side, equals in every way that mattered, Emma felt a sense of peace settle over her. The journey had been difficult, painful even, filled with moments when she had wanted to give up. But she had not given up. She had fought for her place at the table, demanded the respect she deserved, and built something extraordinary from the ashes of rejection. She was not replaceable. She never had been. And now, finally, everyone knew it.